Alright, this is the Thoracic Bones video. I'm going to show you all the rib cage, the sternum, things like that. Not very long. If you're following along with your list, we are down to number 31, which is the sternum. So here it is. This is the rib cage along with this middle bone called the sternum. It's actually got 3 parts to it. See, look, you can click on each part. This is the xiphoid. This is called the body. That's called the manubrium. Here is the very first rib. You don't really have to be able to identify individual ribs. I did want to show you if you pick it up. In fact, I'm just going to leave this on here. So here's where we are. There's the sternum. So manubrium, body, or gladiolus. You can put body if you wish. The xiphoid process and the sternal notch. The sternal notch is that little notch right there. See it? That's a landmark in itself. You can take your finger and find it on top of the sternum. So here we go. Now I'm going to ignore some of these numbers. See, here's 7. That's the manubrium. 8 represents the body, and 9 of the xiphoid. This whole thing is the sternum. Number 4 looks like it's pointing to what is called the sternal notch at the top. The reason I'm using this picture is it does have these numbers out here. This is most likely number 12 is pointing to what is called costal cartilage, the rib cartilage. 13 is pointing to an intervertebral disc. But see number 1 here, it goes down like that. There are 12 sets of ribs. There are 7 true ribs. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, where number 1 ends. True ribs because they attach to the sternum. Number 2 is pointing to what are called false ribs, and that is they're called that because they attach by cartilage directly to the sternum instead of how a true rib attached directly. These attach to cartilage, and you can see it kind of gets meshed together there, and that attaches to the sternum. You have 3 ribs that are called vertebrochondral ribs. They are attached to cartilage that attached, and then you have the ones underneath here that are called floating ribs. There's 2 of those. So on my little diagram, I can go down a little lower. Let me see if I can get this to go down. There we go. I'm going to back it up a little. Yeah, see that? There's 2. See if you turn them around. There they are. 2 floating ribs, and then here are the 3. There's 1, 2, 3. See how they attach here, and then they attach directly, or well, it attaches to the sternum. See how the true ribs come across and attach sort of directly unison like that? There's 1, 2, and there's 1, 2, 3 there. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And see, these attach to a piece of cartilage that comes up and attaches that way. All right, and like I was saying, manubrium, body, sternum. So next, we'll go down, and here you have a couple of you have a couple things on an actual rib you need to identify. It's pretty easy. So here's a good drawing. Probably use this for your assignment, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's the 3 cartilage ribs, and there's the 2 floating ribs. There's the manubrium, the body, and then there's the xiphoid process. And you can actually see the sternal notch right there, that little kind of depression crescent thing goes across. So here's a rib from our lab class. This is called the shaft. All this is in the back. This curls around to the front and attaches there to a piece of cartilage. Okay, this end on this end is called the head, and that little bump there is called the tubercle of a rib. It actually attaches to the transverse process on a thoracic vertebrae. Here's a little closer look. See that bump? I know it's not much to look at, but that little point there or bump, that's called the tubercle of the rib. That's the same end that the head is on. And this is a sternum is kind of taken out of the cage. See, here's the manubrium, the body, the xiphoid, and all of this is called costal cartilage. And one last thing, the area between the ribs, the spaces here, the space between the ribs is called the intercostal space. Like when you do an EKG on someone, you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 intercostal spaces to know where to set the electrodes up. So that's all part of the thoracic bone anatomy. So that's all the thoracic bones. So go to the next, this will be on tab number 10, and look at the 2 appendicular videos there, one for the upper and one for the lower.